Which book are you reading from?
Along the Razor's Edge, first book.
Hey everyone, welcome to QuaranCon 2020, day number, what are we on now, 5? It is the last day of QuaranCon 2020, which is a bittersweet moment. And we still have some amazing programming left for you today, including right now we have Rob Hayes, who is going to do a reading for you all from the first book in his The War Eternal series, Along the Razor's Edge, and it's fabulous book. Rob is a SPFBO finalist in this year's competition. He has won SPFBO in previous years, and is overall just an upstanding human and a great writer. So I am going to just sort of remove myself from this and let you enjoy Rob Hayes.
Hello, everyone. So yes, as I was just introduced, I am Rob J. Hayes, and I'm going to be doing a live reading. I'm a little bit nervous because this is the first time I've done a live one, so do bear with me. But it's okay. I've got my drink just in case. Maker's Mark, if anybody's wondering. So today I'm going to be, well, today I'll just start with this. I released a book today, book 2 of The War Eternal. The Lessons Never Learned. So in honor of that, I am going to be doing a reading from the first book in the series, Along the Razor's Edge. So there we go. And I think I'm doing a sort of, if you want to ask any questions, you can do so in the YouTube chat. And after I've finished my reading, I will endeavor to answer them as best I can. So I guess I'll get on with the reading. Not all the things from the other world are mindless animals, though hellions and carkhounds might give that impression. Many, like the abomination, have a strange intelligence to them. It knew I would use the source to control it, and it dragged the shard of magic from my belly as it passed into our world. Others have an even greater intelligence, and some few can even speak our languages. But it's important to remember that they are still monsters. My hooded lantern cast a beam of light into the cavern. It was a poor source of illumination, and I wondered why Deco hadn't ordered the room filled with torches to keep the darkness at bay. Glancing back, I saw nothing but Horrorlane staring at me from the doorway and knew I'd get no answer. Whatever had taken residence in the cavern was mine to deal with. It dawned on me then how foolish a situation I'd gotten myself into. I was a sorcerer without any sources. I didn't know how to fight, even if I had a weapon. The creatures of the other world were called monsters and horrors for a good reason. Even a mindless hellion would tear me apart, and there was nothing I could do to stop it but tell it to fuck off. I took each step slowly, cautiously, shining my meager light around me. The cavern was empty, save for rubble strewn about the floor. It was hewn straight from the rock that surrounded us, but even in the darkness, I could see the walls were too straight and uniform. The craftsman Deco kept down in the belly of the pit had been carving the cavern with greater skill than us normal scabs could ever have managed. We were blunt instruments, not fine tools. As I ventured further in, I soon found there was a throne at the far end. The pit boss had created a throne room for his palace, and some unnatural beastie from the other world had claimed it for itself. The thought brought a chuckle to my lips. The laugh that echoed back at me was mocking and harsh, and definitely not mine. I almost tripped over the first body. I was too busy looking up and around, not at the ground. The rags made it obvious he was a scab, though I'd rarely seen clothing bloodier. The man was covered in thin gashes all over his arms, face, and chest. He might have had a look of fear frozen on his face, but it was hard to tell under the wounds and blood. The one eye that was still intact stared up at me, pale and sightless. In short, the poor bastard was a right bloody mess. It was the first time I had truly seen the handiwork of a creature from the other world. I had summoned creatures and set them on my enemies, or lost control of monsters so that they escaped into our world unbound. yet I had never seen up close what those creatures could do to a person. I saw it now, and I didn't look away. I deserved to know what sort of horrors my callousness was visiting upon the world. I realized the dark was closing in around me, and looked down to see my lantern as bright as before. The darkness was a thick, cloying thing that drank up the light and left only black behind. I wanted to scream, panic and fear mixing into an unbearable energy, but I couldn't. I couldn't scream, couldn't move. All I could do was watch as the darkness swallowed me up until it was complete. Then came the icy cold fingers of a real monster. Terror froze me to the spot, made me rigid. I was so scared I couldn't even tremble. There is a strange response in animals when confronted with something terrifying and beyond their capability to understand. They just stop, as though if they remain entirely still, nothing can see them. I learned that day that Terrans have the same response. I have the same response. It was a revelation, and not a welcome one. I could feel the lantern in my hand still. Yet there was no light or heat. Trails of ice drew up and down my skin, leaving frozen pain in their wake. I remember the dead man on the ground and the wounds he had, hundreds of thin slices all over him. Fear and terror are strange things. They can paralyze the body, yes, but they also paralyze the mind. I've known people far smarter than I turn into babbling fools once the fear sets in. I've used the trick many times to my advantage. I may not be an empamancer, but these days I know how to instill fear into people. I closed my eyes and swallowed down the lump in my throat, trying desperately to ignore the icy trails along my skin. The creeping sensation of the grave yawning open to swallow me whole. It dawned on me then just how fucked I was. I am the weapon. That thought, that mantra drilled into me by the tutors at the academy lit a spark of anger in me. Anger that I was in a situation so far beyond my control, all I could do was wait for death. Anger, not at the arsehole of a monster trying to eat me alive, but at myself, for not being bloody well strong enough to fight back. Enough! The word erupted as a broken scream torn from my mouth. I was quite surprised when the trails of voice stopped. For a few moments, silence held. Then I heard something move behind me. It sounded quite big. What are you? I asked of the darkness. I thought myself quite knowledgeable back then. I thought I knew most of the secrets the other world held. I know now just how much of a bloody fool I was. I knew nothing. There was no reply, only a noise like metal tapping against stone. You're no gassed, I said. Now the icy trails were gone from my skin. I could feel hot, wet blood oozing out along the little cuts. My arms, chest, and legs all stung from the wounds. A ghast couldn't have done that to me. Those horrors have no physical form. Most of the things from the other world don't have names other than those we give them. Some, however, are quite different. Some are older than the others, old even as the world they come from. Srakis. The word whispered along the ground in front of me like snakes slithering closer before finally hissing out in front of my face. I felt an icy claw close around my chin, the cold of it burning my cheeks. I opened my eyes again, but still there was only darkness. I wonder if that is how blind people live their lives, feeling a foreign touch upon their skin and not having the ability to see who or what it is. The thought of that scares me more than I care to admit. I shook my face free of the hand and it vanished like smoke on a breeze. It was strange, but knowing the horror could speak, hearing its voice like glass shattering, I was free from the paralysis. I craned my head around towards the door out of the cavern. The horror laughed, a croaking sound like old men wheezing out their last breath. They can't hear you, can't see you. No one can help you now. Good. I put about as much iron into my voice as possible and stared straight ahead. I knew the thing could kill me like it had the workers lying at my feet, but I wasn't about to go mewling in fear and crying for mercy like those poor bastards. You're not like the others. You're not like some mindless beast an impermancer can control. You're older, whispered the voice. In a world of nightmares, I am what the darkness fears. I felt a rush of air and knew the monster was moving around me, studying me from different angles. I had intrigued it by breaking its hold. That, and I think it may have grown bored of murdering Terrans. We were too easy prey for it. It was my first encounter with one of the ancient horrors, and I was inexperienced. I believe I danced to Sarakis' tune like a puppet with her strings pulled. Are you corporeal? I asked, and in response, I felt a glacial air breeze through me. Not around me, but through me. I have to say, it was a fucking unpleasant feeling. It chilled me to my core. Most of the horrors have bodies. Bodies make them easy to kill. They give us something to aim at with magic or steel. Some are more like illusions, ghosts drifting through the world. Some are stranger still. Sarakis is one of the latter. How did you get here? I asked. Who summoned you? Questions, questions, questions. I heard the sliver of something fat and wet behind me, writhing on the ground. It took a lot of willpower not to turn and stare into the darkness towards the sound. But that is how Sarakis works. Distractions and fear, killing its prey inch by inch, second by second, 1,000 shallow cuts, all designed to make us piss ourselves in terror. Perhaps I've always been here. Perhaps you summoned me. Again, I felt an icy razor leave a trail along my skin. This time, it started on my neck and trailed around my jaw and up to my ear. I felt blood leak down into the collar of my rags. Fine! I gritted my teeth against the stinging pain. I was still scared, but the terror had left me, and in its wake, it left a blazing determination. You can answer in your own fucking riddle all you want, or you can tell me, what do you want? The trail of ice stopped again. I felt Sarakis drift away from me. While the horror considered my words, I lifted the lantern up and felt the warmth coming from it. The flame was still burning, but the light was gone. Home! The voice was a whispered wail of longing and despair. Where the light doesn't burn, where I don't have to hide underground. Home! Where I was strong. I can help, I said quickly. I think I wanted to get the words out before I realized what I was saying. If I can find an impermancy swords, I can send you back. I sounded very confident. Yet I didn't even know if such a thing was possible. Impermancers could send back the horrors they summoned themselves, so long as the source was still inside of them and control had never been broken. I had never heard of a sorcerer sending back another's summoned creature. For a long time, all I heard was the darkness swirling around me. I felt myself trembling. The cold of Sarakis' presence seeping in bone deep. Why? Came the voice from behind, so close it was only a whisper, but it sounded like a thunderclap. I decided truth was probably the wisest of options. Because I need you to leave this place, I said. Either you kill me here, or the others kill me out there when I can't get rid of you. Either way, I'm fucked. I knew it was true. Deco would either murder me himself or hand me over to Prick the moment I stopped being useful. And this was my very first chance to prove I had any use at all. Talk about setting the bar high. It's like being told to go catch a fish and landing a whale. There would be nowhere to go but down from there. You have seen my world, Sarakis asked. I felt icy hands close around my head, sapping the heat from driving icy spikes of agony into my mind. Yes, I said through chattering teeth. I couldn't stop the trembling. Couldn't stop the cold seeping into my limbs. I honestly thought I was dying, that I'd said the wrong thing, and that the ancient horror was tearing apart my soul. You will carry me there. I could hear the hunger in its voice, the longing so deep it made my own heart ache. Yes. It's fair to say that was an agreement I came to regret making. Yet I would make again, 100 times over. I felt the cold rush into me again, but this time it didn't pass through. It wrapped itself around my heart and mind and stayed there. The unnatural darkness lifted in an instant, and I could see the cavern again, lighter than before. There were 3 bodies scattered about the stone floor, and 1 more draped over the rock-hewn throne. My lantern cast a hazy beam of light forward, and I stood alone in the cavern. Syracuse was gone. Even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't true. But we Terrans are good at convincing ourselves of convenient lies when the truths are too hard. Hey, you dumb girl. Deco sounded impatient. I turned, shining my lantern back towards the entrance where Deco and Horrelane waited. Apparently the darkness had fallen like a blanket almost as soon as I entered the cavern. Now it was lifted. They could see me. Again. I approached slowly, my limbs feeling numb from the cold. Slithering shit, Deco cursed as I drew close, his eyes widening. What happened to you? I was covered in hundreds of tiny cuts, each bleeding only a trickle. It was Syracuse's way, and the first of so many injuries the horror dealt me. I fixed your problem. My voice came out as a stammer, and I very nearly collapsed. I was weak and weary beyond belief. Worse than the pain or the exhaustion, though, was that I could feel something foreign and terrible inside of me. Something living inside, feeding off me as it waited for a chance to escape home. Yeah? Deco asked, taking the lantern from my trembling hands. What was it? I just shook my head at the man. Maybe it was the look in my eyes, or the blood leaking from so many cuts. Maybe he just didn't care. But Deco never asked again, and I never told anyone of the ancient horror I kept inside. So there we go. That's my reading from Along the Razor's Edge, which is the first book in the War Eternal trilogy. And as I say, book 2 is out today. So,
Woohoo. Yay, book 2. We've got a couple questions in the chat. If you want me to relay those, me, the disembodied voice. Or are you gonna look them up yourself?
I could. I'll have to look away though.
Yeah. No, you stare at your camera. So the first question, which might actually take a little while to answer, is from Talos UK 88, and it says, Rob, your reading is fantastic. I have a question regarding how you start writing a novel. Do you have a method, or is it ad hoc? Just getting right to the meat of it.
It's pretty much ad hoc, to be honest. When I start writing a novel, I tend to have a few ideas. It tends to be sort of a few ideas of the world, maybe a character or two, main character usually, and then some set pieces along the way, a beginning and an end. And I pretty much just sit down and start writing and see what comes to me. I've never been much of a architect. I'm very much a gardener, or a pantser, not a planner. So that tends to be. I never tend to have a very specific plan. At least not for book 1. Book 2s and 3s in a series, or as they go on, are a bit different. I feel that you need to have a bit more of a plan, or they just end up as a complete mess. I know the second book in this series did.
Oops. Super sorry. I accidentally muted you there for a second. So if you want to just say that last sentence again.
Mm,
About
I don't know whether
second
you
books.
yeah, I was just saying, like second and third books in the series, you have to have a bit more of a plan, or I feel they just sort of turn into a big mess. And I was just saying, like the second book in this series, the one that's released today, I had to write it twice. The first time I wrote it, it was terrible. I knew it was terrible. I sent it to my alpha readers, and they all came back and said, "This is terrible." At which point I decided it probably needed rewriting, so I went back at it, but I had a bit more of an idea of where I was going the second time around. So it turned out to be a bit better, luckily.
Well, that's good. Yay for yay for it being revised. A revision's a beautiful thing, really. I think it's so nice that we don't have to let people read the first versions of our books.
Oh god, yes, those first versions, they tend to not be worth reading.
No, generally, mine aren't. I don't know. Some people, there are some authors who claim they can do a first draft and that's just like what they send to their editors, and the editors are like, oh yeah, we'll tweak this and this, and then they just go. And I'm like, I don't understand how that happens, but that is not how I write.
Oh no. For me, I edit my own books about 10 times a pop. And then I send it to an editor and they edit it, and then I probably edit it another 2 times after that. So
Yeah, exactly. We have another question from Bubble Fett, and that is, how many books are going to be in this series?
okay, this series is 3 books, The War Eternal. There's Along the Razor's Edge. Hey, I've got props, here we go. So there's Along the Razor's Edge, which is book 1. Then we have Lessons Never Learned, which is book 2. And then, because this just arrived today, we have From Cold Ashes Risen, which is book 3.
Goodness, so pretty. Those are just, I love your covers so much.
Oh, they are gorgeous. This is all Felix Ortiz. I probably destroyed his name. I'm very sorry there. And Sean King, they're absolute wizards with cover design. But yeah, I should probably also mention that book 3. I'm going to show it again. Is in less than a month, May 26th. So
May 26th, lovely.
Yes, come May 26th, which is also my birthday, by the way. All 3 books will be released. The trilogy will be complete.
Yay! We have to write that down so we can harass you properly in the group chat. More questions popping up. This is great. Tony Johnson asks, has your success in SPFBO presented any options where a traditional publisher or agent has become interested in picking you up?
Not overtly, I would say. There's been no approach from an agent or a publisher who said, we know you from SPFBO, we want to take you on or anything. However, when I did approach my agent, John Jarrold, he's a legend, he did point out that he had heard of me, which may or may not have something to do with SPFBO. You never know. So it's a possibility.
Yeah, it's hard to know what doors open necessarily, because it's some of it's hard to trace.
Yeah, so much of it happens sort of behind the scenes that you can't really know for sure.
Yeah. And we have still more questions. So we have Victorianka says, Eska is a great storyteller, very organic in terms of the language used, and very different to the narrative from Never Die or It Takes a Thief. Where did the inspiration for her and her style come from?
That's a tough one. Inspiration wise, I like sort of books like Mark Lawrence's Prince of Thorns and the like. So things like Jorg. I can never pronounce that. I never remember what it's supposed to be pronounced.
I think he said. I think he's made it public that it's Jorg. He's like, how does anyone get Jorg from that? And all of us are like, well, anyone who's like got Eastern European connections is like, yeah, or even German. Like, yeah, it would be Jorg in a number of languages. But anyway, yeah, apparently it's Jorg.
I mean, to be honest, we're English, so we pronounce things, and so is Mark. We pronounce things very strangely. I knew a guy called Jorge once, and I saw his name, and for some reason my brain said it was pronounced Joyce, so I called him Joyce for 2 years, and he never corrected me.
That's
anyway,
very sweet of him. Okay.
So a lot of the inspiration definitely comes from books like Prince of Thorns, and I mean, to a degree, things or books like Name of the Wind, which I am not the biggest fan of, to be honest. I cannot stand cough,
Yeah, the main character. Yeah.
Yeah, so part of me wanted to write Esker as a sort of a foil to him. So he's the sort of character who he aggrandizes everything that he goes through, and Esker's the sort of character who she'll tell you the gritty truth and point out that she's an arsehole.
That's a nice change of pace, honestly.
Exactly. So yeah, I very much wanted that to be part of it. And as for a style, anxiety and sort of that idea of when you think back about the things that you've done, in your past, and so many times you sort of think back and you're like, oh God, I hate that. It's so yeah. I think that's sort of where she comes from largely.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a cool route for her. Sorry, I got distracted, and then there are more questions, so my apologies. Okay, so Victorianka also asks, would it be possible to make the cover art available with the trilogy as well? I don't know if she means as like a poster or.
If you mean sort of as a poster or a print or something, I can't do that because while I got the covers made up, obviously, technically speaking, the rights to the artwork still belongs to the artist, Felix. So you would need to contact him. I think on his ArtStation account, he does have a setup where you can request prints. I can link his ArtStation account into the chat at some point after finishing here. But yes, so I think you'd need to go through him, as the artwork is still his. I just have the rights to use it on my books and promotional stuff.
Cool. We all have another question from, again, Talos UK 88. How long have you been tending this particular garden?
Okay, so I started the War Eternal in 2016, the very tail end of 2016. I think I finished it I finished the first book, Along the Razor's Edge, the first version of it, around Christmas time, and sent it to my auth readers. And then in 2017, I wrote The Lessons Never Learned. Then I wrote it again. And then in 2018, I wrote From Cold Ashes Risen. So I've been working on this one for, what is that now, 3 years?
Yeah, that's a lot. And I think it's interesting personally, as from an author perspective, that you write the entire series before you start releasing any of them.
I
in this case
feel that I actually do that with all of my books. I don't think I've ever released a series before the whole thing has been written, because I like to be able to go back and make changes when new things occur to me. It's part of being a gardener rather than an architect, I suppose. It's that idea that I don't know what's going to happen in the books. So quite often I'll get to the end of book 2 or 3 and some really cool thing will have occurred to me, and I'll be like, I can go back into book 1 and add that in, so it makes it look like I knew all along.
It's a great trick, actually, and I think it's a good argument for doing that precise thing. Yeah, I wish that I had done that completely with my urban fantasy series, but it's not as big of a deal with my other series because those are all standalones. But yeah, for my UF series, they're very directly connected, and I rather wish I'd waited to write all 5 of them before I released.
It just depends on whether or not you can. I mean, a lot of people don't have the sort of the luxury to do it. I suppose they're sort of like, they have to release the books as they're written. But I tend to sort of go into seclusion for a couple of years, write a load of books, and then be like, right, I've got a load of books to publish.
It's a neat trick, really.
Yeah, it seems to work for me, at least.
Yeah, it seems to have worked well for you indeed. Well, Rob, our good friend Angela is about to start her reading, so we should wrap up. Thank you so very much for coming and reading. That was delightful. That's actually one of my favorite scenes. I realized I've actually read that far in the books. I thought I was not as far in, but I loved that scene reading it. But it was even better hearing you read it because I really like the voice you did with the darkness. I've forgotten the name of the character. Caracas. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so that was lovely. So yeah, thanks so much. And everyone, I will post permanent links to all of Rob's website, Twitter, etc. So you can find that in the permanent comments. And he's also going to drop by maybe with the links to Felix Ortiz's stuff, and so that people can track down artwork. And I think that's it. Make sure you check out Artist Alley. Please go listen to Angela Board do a reading starting now. And thanks so much for attending QuaranCon, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Rob.